Okay, next up, we have Dr. Wessen Rawazik, the Quality Assurance Manager from Institutional Excellence Directorate, will be heading today's session on UDSC's journey towards institutional accreditation.
Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Appreciate you staying around, sticking around for my presentation. As my colleague mentioned, I am a Quality Assurance Manager with Institutional Excellence Directorate here at UDSC. And I have some insight over one of our major projects here at UDSC, which is our institutional accreditation that we are currently in the process of going through right now. It's a major project that involves all of our stakeholders at UDSC. So I'm going to now just kind of give you a little bit of an oversight of the project and some details that you will find, I think, interesting about this really important project for all our leadership and our stakeholders. So lots to get through, but I promise I'll try and get through it as quickly as possible, so as to leave some time at the end for some questions. We have what's called the National Committee for Qualifications and Academic Accreditation. This is a new committee that was established by the Council of Ministers under the Ministry of Education and Higher Education. It was established in 2022. It has oversight for overseeing and revising the National Qualifications Framework. And the committee contributes to the development of the higher education landscape in the state of Qatar and ensuring that we have quality higher education delivery. And it does this through accreditation. So it's an accreditation process that higher education institutions go through in order for them to get the accreditation status from the NCQAA. So, what is institutional accreditation? Well, it's a status that's granted to all higher education institutions, and it's a status that's granted through an external review that really assures students and all our stakeholders that this particular institution, which in this case is UDSC, meets the accreditation body's standards for institutional accreditation. And I'll talk a little bit more about what those standards are later in my presentation. But all that to say is it's a really important process. It is a formal process by which we have an external accrediting body, in this case it's the NCQAA, who evaluates our alignment with their accreditation standards. And it involves a self-study, sort of self-reflection on our part as an institution, and it's followed by a site visit from the NCQAA with a formal accreditation status that is then announced at the end of the entire process. It is a mandatory process for every higher education institution in the state of Qatar to go through this accreditation process. So it's not unique just to us, it's everybody that operates in the state of Qatar. And it's not just unique to Qatar. I mean, this is something that is common across all countries in the region, globally as well. These are set standards that are benchmarked, and there are best practices. There are organizations that bring together these accreditors to talk about best practices as well. Okay, so what is the value of this NCQAA accreditation that we are currently pursuing? Well, it's a signal of quality. So we use local developed and internationally benchmarked standards. And when we do that, we get credibility. So the university does actually have a level of credibility not only within Qatar and the region, but also globally. So this is one of the reasons that NCQAA is very valuable to us. It's an opportunity for improvement, so it provides both quality assurance to the public and compliance, and urges us to continuously improve ourselves from a quality perspective. It produces a learning community, so it creates this community of educators that talk about quality assurance and talk about how we can maintain standards and our accreditation. And it is a peer review, so when we do have the visits from from the NCQA, the visitors will be peer reviewers who will then be a source of quality inquiry for us as well. Okay, what is the UDST's accreditation process? I thought I would just include this slide just to give you an idea of just the kind of breadth and width of how long this project will take us until we get to a final decision. We started the process in July of 2024 with the letter of intent where we sent to the ministry saying we are intending to go through accreditation. They've accepted our letter of intent. We are now currently in the process of working to develop the institutional self-study report, which is due in September 2025, so in a few months. This will be followed by a site visit, which we anticipate will be between 2 to 6 months after the reviewers have received our completed application, including our self-study report. So we're expecting them approximately around November, December. And then at the end of the process, once they've done their review, they've come to visit us, they will then deliberate, and then there will be an accreditation decision, which we anticipate will be coming in July 2026. So this is just to kind of give you an idea of how long this exercise is going to take us. Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay. So, institutional self-study, what does that actually mean? Well, it's a self-reflection, as I said. It demonstrates the institution's level, how we comply with the standards of the NCQAA, their accreditation standards. The product of this self-reflection is an institutional self-study report. And this self-study report should not only reflect how we meet those standards, but it should go beyond compliance, and it really talks about our accountability, identifying our strengths, areas of possible improvement within the institution, and it is a commitment to continuous improvement that we aim to show and demonstrate in our submission. Okay, right. So. We have a very comprehensive organizational structure that we've developed for the development of the institutional self-study report. And the reason this is a comprehensive organizational structure is because we really wanted to make sure that we had members of faculty and staff involved in this process. We wanted to make sure that we had input from all our stakeholders in order to make sure that this self-study report is rich, diverse, and comprehensive. So we have 33 business units who contribute to providing content, providing their institutional effectiveness and operations towards the development of the self-study report. They do that through the business unit effectiveness reports. And they provide evidence as well. These are then fed into 5 standard working groups. In those 5 standard working groups, we have faculty and we have staff members who are responsible for a specific standard, and each standard working group works to develop the narratives for that standard based on the business unit effectiveness reports that are coming in from the business units. Then we have an overarching institutional accreditation steering committee that has oversight of the entire project. And we also have a consultant, an external consultant. So, the Institutional Accreditation Steering Committee was set up in 2024. Its mandate really is to review the self-study report to ensure that it is complete, review any recommendations that come in from the standard working groups with respect to the project. It could be with respect to the self-study report. They will take necessary actions as well. They will monitor the work in progress and adhere to timelines. Timelines is really is an important factor in all of this entire project, because We do have strict timelines in terms of when we have to submit the self-study report, when we expect to be visited, and when there's a final decision. They will present this self-study report to the President for review, for endorsement, and then further submission to the board for approval. And they submit any recommendations or comments that we receive from the NCQA. So we do anticipate that there will be some recommendations or be some comments once the NCQA has received their self-study report. The steering committee is going to be responsible for addressing those comments. As I said, we have 5 standard working groups. These 5 standard working groups are comprised of members from faculty and staff. They are responsible for familiarizing themselves with the accreditation standards and really reflecting on each of those review criteria that they are responsible to draft narratives for. They extract relevant information from the business unit effectiveness reports that are submitted by the business units themselves. They can request information and supporting evidence from business units just to sort of support the narratives with results, with data, whether it's qualitative, quantitative, etc. They will then develop an analytical, evidence-based self-study report that's for their particular standard, and then they will submit that to the steering committee. So each standard working group is responsible for a standard. They develop that, and then they submit that to the steering committee. They submit also any recommendations. As I said, they could have recommendations about the self-study report, about the project itself. They can submit that to the steering committee as well. They will review the institutional self-study report before the final draft, before it is submitted to the steering committee. And we do have an internal reviewer who is consolidating that self-study report, so that it is one common language that we're presenting as a representation of UDST. And of course, they adhere to set timelines. I know I emphasize this a lot, but it is actually a very important aspect of this project. Business units. Okay, as I said, we have 33 business units. These business units will discuss and agree on KPIs and set targets, because it's not just about standards, it's about meeting institutional effectiveness. And part of those is KPIs that each business unit has set for themselves that are aligned with the strategic priorities in our UDST strategic plan, and obviously also the UDST mission. They will prepare and complete the business unit effectiveness reports, ensuring that there is supporting evidence. And these evidences are documented and available to the standard working groups. They will also monitor the achievement of targets, which is really important as well. So it's kind of a closing of the loop, and I will go a little bit into detail about that a little bit later. Us, the Institutional Excellence Directorate, we're a small, mighty team, as I'd like to call, and we are very much involved in this project. We meet with each standard working group to provide further support and guidance whenever required or needed. We provide support to the business units on institutional effectiveness, accreditation frameworks. We also do surveys. We're responsible for surveys, institutional research, operational plans, lots and lots of wonderful things that we do at IE. We maintain active liaison and coordination with the Institutional Accreditation Steering Committee and with the NCQAA. So we are the point of contact for the NCQAA and UDST. Now, the consultant, we have hired a consultant, an external consultant, who is responsible for familiarizing themselves not only with the standards, but with UDST's institutional effectiveness and accreditation framework, and all other related documents. So these are our policies, our procedures, our guidelines, our frameworks, all of those documents that exist within business units. The consultant will be familiarizing themselves with these documents. They will examine the self-study report, and they're going to make a recommendation on how we are fulfilling the review criteria and the standards themselves. They will also give their feedback on the relevance of the evidence that's provided, whether it's adequate or the accuracy of those evidences that we will use as supporting evidence in the report. And they will also check the report for language. They will also be required to provide a highly analytical report with an in-depth analysis of us as a university, our strengths and weaknesses, highlighting any of our sort of inconsistencies that we might be having that may have been evident in the report, and suggest ways that we can strengthen the narrative as well in the self-study report. They will provide an assessment of the university's current standing towards achieving full accreditation. So we are only interested in full accreditation. The consultant will be able to give us their feedback based on their experience on how we are achieving that, how close we are to getting a full accreditation. And they will present to our steering committee a summary of their findings as well. They will also ensure delivery of their tasks on time as well, because they are under their own time constraints as well. And share relevant information and good practices. The reason we have hired somebody who's external is to also share with us their experiences about global best practices for accreditation. And so that we find this as a valuable resource as well. And what is also very important is that they are protecting and maintaining the confidentiality of all the information that we will be sharing with them. Okay, your role, faculty and staff in the accreditation process. I can't stress this enough, this is really, really an important part of the accreditation process, because your role will be to really spread awareness of the importance of institutional accreditation by educating our students, by educating all of our stakeholders, and especially for our students, it really highlighting to them how accreditation will ensure the quality of their education and enhances the value of their degree. So it is very important for you that you discuss this with your students actively, because what we're doing here right now is really going to be ultimately benefiting our students. Promote discussions and awareness at faculty and staff meetings about the process, about institutional accreditation, and obviously we're happy to support in any way that we can at IE. And then celebrate milestones. So if we have new program accreditation, we should celebrate that. If we are celebrating great places at work, that's something to be celebrated. So let's celebrate those as well. We have a new UDSD strategic plan, which I hope that you'll all be very well familiar with before the accreditation visit, because this is our foundation for everything that we're doing with the self-study report. Okay, so a little bit about these 5 standards. I keep mentioning 5 standards. I keep mentioning review criteria. Yes, they are available on our website, on the CQAA website. I've also included a QR tag, so in case you want to have some sort of night reading, this is a great source for you. These are the manual with 5 standards. Each of the standard has 3 focus areas and has review criteria. So in each focus area, there are review criteria. Our standard working groups are required to respond to each of those review criteria and then the overall standard. Okay, so the NCQAA has developed the standards, and I like this slide because it gives you a little bit of an idea of how these standards were developed and why they're important. So Standard 1 really talks about our foundations, our mission statements. We always talk about, and you'll find this as a consistent theme throughout all the 5 standards, is the mission, always reverting back to the mission. So it's really important that we familiarize ourselves with the mission, because the first one talks about organizational structure, ensuring integrity, leadership, transparency, and how we developed our mission. Then we go into Standard 2, which is about deploying appropriate resources. So what are the resources at the university that are helping us to achieve our mission, whether it's human resources or IT or facilities management or human capital? Those are all the resources that we use or leverage in order for us to meet our mission. 3, which is developing, Standard 3, developing and implementing institutional planning and effectiveness. That's really about how how do we achieve effectiveness? How do we make sure that our policies and procedures are effective and efficient for the purposes that they're there for? So it really is about linking all those resources to what ultimately is standard 4, which is the delivery on the mission. So these are all about teaching and learning. It's about student services. It's about community engagement. So those 3 standards kind of set us up for standard 4, which is the kind of, I would say, the heart of this accreditation project, and will be evident in the self-study report. And then standard 5, which is about impact. So what is our stakeholders' expectations? How are we impacting them? How are we meeting our stakeholders' needs? And that's standard 5 as well. So that's also going to be in our self-study report. Okay. So to write this report, we have developed, and actually this is something that has come from the NCQAA, an analytical tool called the ADRI model. It is not unique to the state of Qatar. It is, in fact, something that is used globally. And it's not only for accreditation. You can use this in every other tools that you have. If it's research, in coursework, it's a very, very important and very, I would say, wholesome tool when you're talking about accreditation and meeting standards. So, what is the ADRI model? Well, it's a 4-step cyclical analytical tool. It comprises of the approach. How do we approach a specific review criteria? How do we deploy? And what are the results? And then, out of those results, what are our improvement strategies or steps? The ADRI model aims to help facilitate and structure a systemic self-assessment. It helps the higher education institution to assess whether or not it has met a criterion and show that outcomes and achievements are not by chance. So we can't just say, yes, we have outcomes and we have achievements and we're doing great. We actually have to show how, why, and what are the results and where's your evidence. So that is the purpose of our self-study report. ADRI, as I said, can be used at all levels of the higher education institutions, so it can be at an institutional, department, program, cohort level as well. And it's also used by external review panels who are going to be using this model when they come to visit us and assess whether what we have said in our self-study report actually reflects what's happening on the ground in action. The last slide, I wanted to put this one in here because I think it's actually quite useful to show you that sort of continuous process. It's a circle. So we start with an approach, thinking and planning. What are our aims? How do we propose to achieve those aims? What results are we looking to achieve? And then how do we deploy? Are we following our plans? Are we implementing it in practice? And why are we doing that? And then the evidence, which is the results, are they effective in achieving the intended outcomes? So are our results correlating with the deployment that we intended? And then finally, the improvement, which is learning and adapting. So where we recognize there might be gaps, where we have identified that there are gaps, how are we approaching improvements? How do we close those gaps and really use that results to inform sort of that continuous improvement cycle? And that's it for me. I've given you a lot of information, so please take it home and digest. Oh, and UDSC strategic plan, it's on our website under more. Please learn it, love it, enjoy it. Going once, going twice? Oh, yes. I don't know if is there a mic there or no?
What about the mic?
Yes. Yes. Our values haven't changed on the website? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we'll happily look at those and make sure that, because we actually welcome feedback like that, because we want to make sure that everything on there is up to date, because that's what they're going to be looking at. I know that the strategic plan is on there, the latest one, so we'll be sure to visit the values as well. Mission is there, the vision is there. I know that I've checked that, and those are all correct, but I'll have a look at that. Yes, we had a strategic plan that was sort of a draft one before this one. This one is now our official one, the 2024 one. Thank you for that. Any other comments? Anything? I see a lot of familiar faces here because they're all in our standard working groups, and thank you for coming out and supporting us. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wessen.